If I could give some of you guys a name, it would be the GV Glazers, because the brand that I've gotten countless requests to start doing videos on are Genesis vehicles. Genesis in the past 5 to 7 years has been on a comeback conquest unlike no other. And since I've spent the past couple of weeks with a G90 and now this GV80 Coupe, I've come to a realization. Genesis is terrifyingly close to having a full-blown Mercedes killing lineup on their hands. And so not only do I want to talk about how Genesis is absolutely killing it right now, but I also want to give up some game. I want to show Genesis how with an easy 3-piece combo, they could actually overtake Mercedes if that's something they're interested in. But first, very important announcement. My cousin's housefly told me that we could not hit 500,000 subscribers this year, and we've got to prove him wrong. So if you like cars, and you like miles, you know what? I think I'm just gonna go readmit myself. Even a little bit. Make sure to subscribe so you can be there when my cousin's housefly sees us hit that magic number. A major problem that a lot of car brands trying to revive themselves encounter is public perception. Maserati is a good case study for this. At least here in the States, Maserati is known as a completely unreliable, depreciating nightmare of a car to own. Now in present day, their current lineup of cars is a lot more refined and solid. I've made some videos on them, but aside from them being insanely overpriced, they still haven't really been able to overcome that public perception they had in the past. Now, Genesis is in a very interesting spot because they've been around since the late 2000s, but it was initially just introduced as a special variant of a Hyundai model. It wasn't an entire sub-brand like it is today, but it also wasn't a trim level. It was basically just a specific version of a special Hyundai model. And the Hyundai Genesis models were proof that Hyundai could make a nicer looking version of their cars, but it didn't really make waves the same way other luxury sedans were at the time, and Genesis kept quietly making this car until they killed it off in the early 2010s. Sometimes flying under the radar and not being too great or being too terrible is exactly what you need to have an epic comeback. So when Genesis relaunched as a new company in 2016, most non-car people were like, oh, who's this handsome new fella? And now with the way they've been coming out with so many great cars, the public perception is pretty awesome as far as I can tell. And I can tell a lot. My whole point with public perception is because Genesis flew under the radar for so long and doesn't have an iconically bad car to look back to, they genuinely have the chance to become just as valid, as the kids say, as Mercedes. Now here's where I want to indulge in some glazing, if you will allow me. I think of any new 5-seater SUV you can get under 100 grand right now, this has to have the nicest interior. At least to me. I don't know with whom your glaze lies. But this carbon trim, the red accents, the sweet dark blue leather and suede, this interior feels like someone at Ferrari spec'd this car out. I swear I've seen an F12 TDF that looks just like this on the inside. Everything here feels so solid and premium. There's no rattling, there's no creaks, there's no stupid capacitive touch controls on the steering wheel. That's something that a certain brand loves to do. And so when you get in here and look at the interior and start playing around with stuff, it's kind of hard to believe that this is basically just a Hyundai with nice lipstick. The software isn't the prettiest, but it's really user-friendly and it's not as cluttered as BMW or Mercedes user interfaces. And something Genesis doesn't get a lot of credit for is the fluidity of their software. I film my videos in 24 frames per second, so you can't really get a good grasp of how smooth the frame rate is. But I swear, it's one of the best CarPlay experiences out there because of that alone. There's no glitches, there's no software connectivity issues. Everything works flawlessly of every Genesis I've ever driven, and I've driven maybe 10 or more at this point. And then this GV80 Coupe and other high-end Genesis models have things like soft closed doors, really good B&O speakers, really nice hardware and UI touch points. The overall experience is definitely punching above what you would get for the equivalently priced Mercedes. A $90,000 GLE just doesn't quite feel as special in my opinion. Now, I'm not saying a Mercedes isn't a luxury experience. That's definitely not the case, but Mercedes has also kind of been able to coast on brand name and status for so long that they can get away with cheaping out in certain areas or just making all of their interior one giant screen. Genesis is really coming hard, and pause, with all of their quality game because they know that's what they need to overcome the reputation of something like a Mercedes or BMW. And so Genesis, keep doing stuff like this, because to say that the GV80 has one of the nicest interiors of an SUV under 100K that I've ever reviewed, that means a lot. Now, one of the reasons I've never done a full review of a Genesis on this channel is because I tend to focus on cars with some level of enthusiast appeal. And every Genesis I've driven, it just hasn't scratched that itch. I'm gonna keep it a buck. But I do think that Genesis is aware of this and they're looking to pivot, but we'll get to that in a second. But the sheer ride quality of modern Genesises are excellent. The G90 is literally the best riding luxury sedan you can buy for under 100K. The damping and body control for smooth cruising is phenomenal. And the G90 Obsidian pack that I had a couple of weeks ago was having me ready to turn up at the retirement home, bruh. It's literally peak old man car if you don't care about the powertrain. And with 400-ish horsepower, the G90 I drove definitely wasn't slow, but it also wasn't really fun to drive either, and that's what I think Genesis's biggest hurdle is at this point. I've yet to drive a Genesis that's genuinely fun to drive, and that's what they need to have to be able to challenge all of the M lights and the AMG lights. I don't think Genesis needs to make X5M killers and GLS 63 killers with 700 horsepower. That's not really the move, because the money makers for those brands are the M lights, the AMG lights, the GLE 53 AMGs, the X7 M60Is. That's, I think, the pocket that Genesis needs to target. And so the play here is dropping in genuinely characterful and sporty engines that can add a bit more flair to what's already a great experience otherwise with the tech and the luxury. They've got that down pat. And here's why I think they could do it. The current boss at Hyundai's Performance N division actually used to run BMW M, and one of the most notable things he's done under Hyundai's N division is create the most fun, attainable electric car on sale, the Hyundai Ioniq 5N. And so if he can collaborate with Genesis's team to apply some of that sauce to their gas-powered cars, they'd be absolutely cooking. Now, Genesis already has a new performance division that they're cooking up called Magma, which I don't know if that name really hits for me, but we'll see how it sticks over time. And they've got a couple of cars in the works. Firstly, a performance version of the GV60, which will basically just be a Hyundai Ioniq 5N with a different skin. They've got a performance wagon version of the G90 luxury sedan cooking. And then they've also got this new mid-engine V8 supercar. And you know me, I love me a supercar, and I will definitely review that car on this channel if I get the chance. But the impact that Genesis could have if they put some of their higher end performance motors in some of their lower tier, more attainable cars, the impact they could have would be generational. And my God, if they made them tunable, the BMW M boys would be shaking in their boots. Magma is still in its infancy, so only time will tell if this really lives up to the hype or it just becomes another marketing gimmick. But I totally think Genesis could crush higher performance cars as long as they don't overcomplicate the powertrains. We don't need a twin charge 4-cylinder with 3 electric motors making 1,000 horsepower, just a spicier V6 or V8 with a couple of turbos in it, maybe have it rev a little high, call it a day. And so if they excel in these 3 pillars, continued great brand perception, continued luxury excellence, and introduce some genuine performance car competition, they could easily be up there with BMW and Mercedes in the next 10 years. But let me know what you guys think. Am I just yapping, or does Genesis genuinely have a chance to be up there with the big German 3 in the next 10 years? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and also comment James Baxter if you made it to the end.